So one of the things that I really wanted to focus on was God before he created man. So one thing that we see is harmony, right? So you have these trees, right? And there's seeds, but there's also water, right? That comes from everywhere. But if you notice, everything is self-balancing. It's in harmony. That's what I really loved about this, right? Because that water, even if it's mist or evaporates, the system is self-sufficient. It also balances out. The other thing that I notice is that there's no wastage, right? So he creates the trees, he's creating the lands, he's creating the seeds, he's creating everything, right? And I really love that. But one thing you notice is that so that drop of water, right? Right? It never dies out. Whether it's ice or mist or water droplets, right? Everything it can go into those trees again, and then those trees, evaporate. So everything in this system is well thought out. God is a thinker. He thought everything out. The fact that we don't see God's coming into the earth or God having to do maintenance or preventative maintenance or come in and update new stuff. Why? Because everything has been built into the system. So I like the fact that there's no wastage, right? Everything is being utilized, right? This is a big one that I really loved. We want to look at a seed, right? So a seed, and I'm just gonna just imagine a seed, right? Maybe with some, so it can become fertilizer because it can decompose. Think about it being on the ground, right? This fall into the ground, it decomposes, right? Or it becomes food for animals. The other thing is that it's turns into a fruit slash plants in the right soil. That's multi-purpose. That's incredible. Think about it. The fact that this seed can do so many different things, right? It's the same thing with a lot of different things, right? Even a leaf on a tree, right? It serves to absorb the sunlight, photosynthesis. It serves to be food for an animal, but at the same time, it can be shade for the animal. At the same time, it can be a protective instrument for the tree. So I love how God, he's so thoughtful that anything that you see that's in existence, that's natural, that's God made, has multi purposes. It just isn't one functionality. And it serves multiple functions in order to help that self balancing, help that ecosystem, you know, be whole. When you think about that ecosystem, right? This seed can do so much. Seed, a leaf, even a rock, right? A rock can be used to create a habitat for an animal. It can be used to provide the pathway for a river. It can be used as a defense. It's just so many different things. And you can do that for soil, for branches. You can do that for just about anything that is God made. Now, another thing that I really thought was genius was the ability. So we're going to bring this seed again, right? I'm just going to bring the little roots and stuff like that. But within this seed is a freaking force. is like a group of trees, right? Because it can infinitely self-replicate, right? It's the ability self-replication, right? So this seed, just one seed, can literally spread across the world, which is really magnificent when you think about that genius that God put into the seed. This is also the same genius that God puts into a human being. We didn't know Elon Musk as a kid when he was in his seed form was going to be the Elon Musk that we see today. We didn't know Tom Brady in his seed form as a kid was going to be the Tom Brady that we see today. Just as we don't know between you and I, what we're going to be in the future, although we've been given visions and dreams and missions and things of that nature. So just that ability for a seed to self-replicate is really genius. It goes to show that God has genius. I mean, really, you can't even use words to describe that genius because it's so powerful. There's a video, guys, that I want to do whereby I talk about how Facebook and some of the most popular and famous and really like thriving companies and businesses are using this same idea to grow. Like Facebook Seed, for example, is when they first started the platform, all they had was the soil, which was literally just a platform. The seed was a user coming on and uploading their photos. The self replication was that user inviting other friends to be able to view their photos and upload their photos. So it began a process of self replication. This is the same thing with Instagram via Snapchat. So with a lot of these fast growing companies, we see the ability for them to self replicate inherently within. So that means that there's little to no effort put in for it to just blossom, to bear much fruit. And that's such a beautiful principle. And I think it also applies to our businesses. What are things like, for example, posting this piece of content has the ability to go viral, right? To bring in a lot of business. Um, so another thing that I really love about what God creates is that everything has value and purpose, right? So nothing created is just for vanity or just for looks or just for nothing purposes. No, 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 no. That flower has a responsibility. The bee has a responsibility. That broken iceberg has a responsibility. Everything is crucial in God's ecosystem. There's value, there's purpose. So it goes to show that God, our God, is intentional, right? He doesn't create randomly, right? It's very decisive, it's purposeful, and it's value driven. Again, guys, this is just us doing a summary of before man was created, right? So we're just looking at what God created. He's dividing these firmaments, their stars, the light, the day. We're looking at the trees, the lands. We're looking at all these creatures, and we're just saying, what are these characteristics of God that we can begin to study from Him and understand on a deeper level to be able to apply to our lives, our relationships, our businesses, and just everything in general. So we can start off with just looking at there's harmony, right? Everything in His system is self-balancing, right? So uh, even though there's a seed that can create infinite trees, there are predators, there are diseases, there's naturally occurring storms or, Mother Nature that will actually cause everything to kind of be in balance. And if you notice, even because man comes in and oftentimes, causes that formula to sway in one side, there's things such as, I forget what they call like protected species and protected areas. Why? Because they realize, hey, if we cut out or kill all of these species, it will cause this other species to go crazy, and it can cause a whole ecosystem to go out of balance, to go out of sweat. And I think it's the same thing in our lives and our businesses and a lot of other things. We have to make sure that there's harmony. We have to make sure that things are balanced. If not, it causes things to sway and go out of control, right? Um, I love this self sufficiency. God doesn't have to keep coming back. Hey, here's a new bucket of water. Here's some new rocks. Here's new land. No, 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 no. Everything is created within the system. So what does that mean? It means basically that everything that's needed is there, right? That water that fell is going to evaporate, is going to be used as photosynthesis, is going to be used within the soil, is going to use to provide nourishment. Then it's going to evaporate, go back into the ecosystem, go back into the sphere, atmospheres, and then it's going to like come back down as rain. Even if the ice is this iceberg. So you see that everything kind of works in a nutshell. The same seed that maybe falls to the ground, doesn't get ate, decomposes, becomes fertilizer to help other plants and fruits and trees grow, which other animals eat. So you begin to see that there's this collective harmony within everything. Everything is self-sufficient, everything is self-balancing. It's still growth orientated, but it wants to grow in a balanced, in a sufficient way that harmonizes. It's like everything collaborates together for the overall greater good, for the overall greater growth, which is pretty cool. I love the multi-purpose. Again, one seed becomes a fertilizer if it falls to the ground and decomposes. If not, maybe a squirrel eats it. We see squirrels every day outside eating nuts, so that becomes food for the animal. And a lot of times, that squirrel will pass out seeds. Now, the seed is actually combined with the fertilizer and goes into the ground. So now that plant, that tree, whatever that's growing is now able to grow at a quickened pace, have a better chance of growth and survival because it has that fertilizer mixed in with it, which is really cool when you think about it. Or it turns into a fruit or a plant right there. So there's a lot of multi-purpose. This doesn't just the seeds. These are for even the animals. Some animals are symbiotic. That means they have to work with other animals, such as like sharks. And there's little gillfish that live in the gills of these sharks. And all they do is just clean excess dirt, excess bacteria, and things of that nature. So we can kind of see how there's not one thing doesn't just have one purpose. It has a lot of different purposes, all in that system of self-efficiency and balancing things out. I think something that's also pretty cool is to see that self-replication. This is a huge one, whereby we see this genius intellect of God to say, you know what? The seed can self-replicate and produce of its kind. The fact that you have a fruit, you can enjoy this fruit, this apple, this mango, and then plant the seed in the ground, and it gives forth to a mango tree that bears a lot of mango trees or apples. It's such a phenomenon. And then you can take those different mangoes, get seed from it, and plant it. And now, before you know, you begin to have a forest, you begin to have a garden, you begin to have this farm, you begin to have this lush landscape of these things that have grown. And it goes to show God's power. It goes to show his thought. It goes to show he's a very leveraged God. He doesn't want to have to keep coming back. He thinks smart. He thinks smart. How can we think smart in our businesses and our life whereby we don't have to keep going back and doing the same thing over, but design and create things and do things in such a way whereby once we do it, the effect that we want is able to multiply into infinite, which is also very powerful when you think about it. I think, like I said earlier, those companies like Facebook, Instagram, the social medias rely on this, whereby they self-replicate. They have user one that comes in, they share it with user two, and it just begins to have this, network effect, right? That sprouts in all areas. And before you know, the social media platform is a multi-billion-dollar industry, right? Because they have millions of people in their industry, right? It's self-replication. I think franchises, right? McDonald's has self-replicated itself all over the place, right? Your Arby's, your, Chick-fil-A, whatever place you eat at, even companies that aren't fast food places, one of the success of the companies or businesses is the ability to self-replicate. I like things like a book, things like that are self-replicatable. Now, the last thing to talk about is that value and purpose and being intentional, right? Nothing God creates is by accident. We can see very clearly that there's a purpose for everything. Not only that, but there's things that have multiple purposes. It also goes to show there's this intentional, hey, I'm not playing around. We don't see weird creatures that don't serve any purposes. We don't see these weird fruits or trees or anything that don't serve any purposes. Everything has its place within the system and it's vital to the system. A lot of times we in humanity right now, hey, something's got to be protected, endangered this, endangered, restricted area because humans realize, oh, because I hunted out this animal or because I kill this crop is now causing these big disturbances all over the place. So now we have to actually put this animal on the endangered list, this plant, this tree, or we have to secure this area. If not, it can cause a worldwide catastrophe. So it goes to show that what God created is perfect. It's us that's kind of tampering things that causes things to not be perfect. But really, guys, the overall summarization of this is how can we take these characteristics and these designs and these things God has done and apply them to our lives, apply them to our businesses, apply them to our relationships, apply them to our legacy, apply them to everything that we do. Because there's no way you don't take principles, characteristics, and values that God used to create the world and apply to what you're doing, and you don't have success. God said his word will not return to him void, but I think he is the greatest teacher. I know he is the greatest teacher. So there's a lot we can learn from him. So, guys, I'm excited. Subscribe, share this with as many people as possible. Check the links. There's a book that I recently put out about how I made close to $500,000 from my business from just speaking to people. It's very intentional, very value packed. It's something that you're going to love. It's about $7. So go ahead and grab a copy of that. If you want to book a call with me to talk more about your business or anything of that nature, there's a link down below. The purpose of my channel, everything is to see you guys massively succeed. One thing I've been saying more intentionally as of now is that I really want to dive into biblical studies, into biblical knowledge, and then share that with the rest of the world, share that with everybody else, because I've read thousands of books. I've taken courses and masterminds and 10,000 this and all kinds of money for this and that third. But there's nothing, and I'll give you guys a little bit of a sneak glimpse. There's something God said to be fruitful. And that was the first word he gave to mankind. And when I studied the word to be fruitful, it means to bring out the businesses within oneself, to bring out nourishment and value, to take one's creative potential and to maximize it, to unleash it, to max it, to bring all, to be all you can be. And I said, wow, even just studying that word by itself is really just greater than most of the masterminds and most of the things that I've taken, because God is literally saying that when I created you, I designed you with the ability to be industrious. I designed you with the ability to be productive, to be able to produce fruits, not just mentally. A lot of people think it's just kids. It's not just that. It's bring those ideas to fruition. So that's a little bit of a sneak peek of what we have coming on. Subscribe, share, like, check the links for more description. Check my podcast, Mastermind Your Life, too, as well. I will be dropping things on that. And guys, make sure you subscribe, get your email address in, because I love to send emails about God's word, life, legacy, men, women, and just in general. And let's all grow together. God bless. Love you all. Subscribe, and I'll see you soon.